Hello again guys, sorry I'm just having fun with the whole one thing. And today I thought I'd do my top 10 Harry Potter theories. Now I know there's so many and I already have a part 2 of this video planned, but I just thought I'd talk about the top 10 out of the ones that I have and some of my favourite theories, because there are so many that work really well with the books, and some of them J.K. Rowling even likes, so I'm like, have you heard of any of these? If there's any more, please do comment below, although of course, like I said, I have planned part 2, so some of them may be in part 2. Without further ado, let us commence. Now, phone work. Number 10 is the idea that Ron is a time-travelling Dumbledore. Now, this one kind of has merit, because people said, like, it's pointed out that Dumbledore was a ginger before his hair went grey, and the whole idea they both injured their legs, they're both really good at chess, etc. And Dumbledore always manages to know what's going on before it does, almost as if he's lived it before, and he's gone back to fix what went wrong the first time. Now, I like this theory, although not as much, because I'm a bit like, I'm sure there's so many flaws and loopholes to it. If he was Ron, there's so much more he could have done. He could have prevented certain deaths, because people will be like, oh, he can't prevent that death because that's part of the timeline. Well, if he is Ron come back because everything went wrong, he's already changed the timeline. Because the original timeline, everyone would have died or something for him to come back to change it. You see what I mean? Anyway, that's just my opinion. And the number 9, which is one that I don't really like, and I don't understand it because there's so many loopholes on it, but it's got quite a lot following, and it's the idea that Arthur Weasley was under the Imperator's Curse, and the idea that when Voldemort was in power, he used the curse on a lot of very low ministry officials so that they could work their way up, and it would just be like spies, but no one would think about it because they're so young and they've just started and they don't have any power, and Voldemort would want power, so he would go after the minister. It's a smart plan. Now, I kind of like the idea, I'm like, but then I think there was so much, like, Harry was at his house most of the time, things like that. Kind of makes sense, because I'm thinking of, like, with when there were 7 Harrys and things like that, I'm like, maybe he could have been the mole, because they found out. I don't know, there were so many chances he had with Harry where Voldemort could have been like, kill him, or like he lived in his house sort of thing and no one would have suspected him. So I feel like there's so many things wrong with that theory, but at the same time I feel like someone's gonna have to really dig through the books and look at every instance to really see, like, could it, because people argue this is why he's never been promoted, because they wanted him as a low ranking person and he's under a curse, so he can't respond straight away to certain things because he's under the curse. Anyways, number 8 is the idea that Horcruxes are made by cannibalism. Dun dun dun. Because Voldemort killed hundreds and hundreds of people, therefore he would have hundreds of Horcruxes flying around. Horcruxes flying around if his soul just jumped into whatever was nearest. Therefore it has to be a certain method, otherwise anyone could have an accidental Horcrux and everyone would be living forever. Anyone who killed someone would just, Bellatrix would have loads of Horcruxes, she would never die. So the whole idea is there has to be something special about it, and it's been linked to cannibalism because it has to be something that most people wouldn't do, and the idea that cannibalism has always been linked with the idea of taking power from someone. But at the same time I'm like, I'm sure baby Harry, he didn't, because Harry's the last Horcrux, I'm sure he didn't eat him. Maybe he ate one of their I don't know. I feel like it needs more research, but it is an interesting theory, and there has to be something about making a Horcrux that he can't just make everything a Horcrux. Because like I said, he's killed so many people, he would never die. The next one is the idea that J.K. Rowling is actually Rita Skeeter, which I find this one really funny because just how as a character she's portrayed. And the whole idea is that after everyone realised that most of what she said was lies, they banished her from the magical kingdom and she returned to the Muggle world, aka our world, and she now writes about all these stories. She writes them as stories, but actually they are her life and things from her point of view, and she finally decided to write the truth. And we read it like, oh, she's so imaginative, and people are like, no one could be that imaginative. Like, the way the first book connects to the last book and the amount of things that just match up that most authors wouldn't be able to do shows that it has to be based on real life. Interesting. I think she has addressed this. I think she said no. I can't remember. But I know she has addressed it, and it is a funny theory to think about. I don't see her characteristics like that of Rita Skeeter though, so maybe if she was Rita Skeeter, wouldn't she have portrayed herself in a better light when writing the books? Next one. Ginny Weasley slipped Harry a love potion. Now this one's got quite a lot of followers, especially people that ship Harry with other people, because they said, like, fair enough, but Ginny's very, what's the word? I don't know, like, he could fall in love with her. They had things in common. She's very strong, she's very powerful. I love Book Ginny. But it's the pace at which he went from not noticing her at all to being like, Ginny, love my life, This, like, if it was a slower thing, then it would have worked, but it was the at which she did it, and the whole idea that she could easily get a love potion. Fred and George are her brothers, things like that. People saying, oh, everyone's making love potions for you anyway, so it could happen, and people think that it did, and the fact that it lasted so long is just that genuine love maybe did come out of it, but it started out with a love potion. Interesting. And this is like one of my favourite theories ever, and it's the idea that Harry, Snape and Voldemort are the three brothers. So the whole story is about the three brothers, the first one which chose the wand, and he fought for power, and he died because he bragged about how much power he had. Now this very much goes with Voldemort. He died for power. The second brother chose the Resurrection Stone, someone that he had lost and loved, however realised that it would never be the same. He died for love, and a love that already died. Now that is Severus Snape. He fought for Lily, and he wanted her back, and that's what he wanted. That's what he spent his life trying to sort of repay her and her memory. And then the third brother is friends with death, and the whole idea of this is that Dumbledore is death, and he greets him as an old friend. He doesn't want to confront the person with power. He doesn't want power. He doesn't want all this stuff. He just wants to live, to be with his friends, to die at a reasonable age, and he greets death as an old friend. Dumbledore. Dun, dun, dun. I really like that theory. I think that it works really well, and it fits the story, and I don't know, I love that theory so much. Do you agree? Feel free to tell me below. The next one is Neville. Now this one I found really interesting. The reason that Neville is very bad at magic at the start is because he's using his father's wand. Now, I'm not sure where this is mentioned in the actual books, but Neville uses his father's wand after what happened with Voldemort and his parents. They obviously can't use magic anymore, and so the wand didn't choose him, he chose the wand. And it's been explained that if you use a wand that hasn't chosen you, your spells aren't going to be as good, it's going to be a lot of effort, and that's why Neville is really bad at magic. However, after the Department of Mysteries, his wand is broken. He goes to Ollivander's. He gets a wand that chooses him. Now suddenly, DA meetings, he's out there producing whatever spells, he's proficient, he just improves so much, and he becomes a really good wizard. And people say it's because the wand chose him. He had it all along, but he was using a wand that wasn't his, and so wouldn't work for him. And I really like this theory. I feel like it makes sense, and it's really interesting, and I'd never heard it before. I was looking up theories. The next one is that all three of the Golden Trio should have been in different houses, and the whole idea that to be in Gryffindor you don't have to be brave, you have to ask to be, because it is your choices that make you a Gryffindor. Now it's very clear that Ron should be in Hufflepuff, Hermione should definitely be in Ravenclaw, and Harry apparently should be in Slytherin. Yet all three of them ended up in Gryffindor together. And why is that? Because they all asked to be. Hermione wanted to be in that house, Ron wanted to be with the rest of his family, and Harry very clearly asked for it. So that's the reason they ended up in the house, not because of their qualities, but because they asked to be. And maybe Neville might have been brave inside, but maybe he asked to be too because he knew he didn't fit in all the others. Very interesting theory, and I really like this one, because I like the idea that it's your choices that define you, not what you have as an 11-year-old child inside you. Next one. This is one of my favourites again. The whole idea that Draco Malfoy is a werewolf. Now this has quite a lot of evidence. Like there's a whole website like Draco Malfoy is a werewolf .tumblr.com or .com, and it basically goes into quite a lot of detail about evidence for this theory, and I really like it. And it's the whole idea that Voldemort was unhappy with him and he sent Greyback to bite him. And this is based on the idea that Greyback is introduced as a character who specifically punishes people who have messed up by biting their children. For example, he's the one that bit Lupin. And when Harry is hiding in Borgin and Burke's, Draco threatens Borgin and shows him something on his arm. Now, people have said that he hasn't got the Death Eater's mark yet, so there must be something else. And after this, he says that Greyback is a close personal friend, and this is just after he shows him his arm, so people think that this is linked, and there's been loads of little clues that link with this. And then finally, when Voldemort was talking about Tonks and Lupin and having a child, he says, maybe you can babysit the cubs, Draco. And this may just be a sliding comment, but people have linked it like, why would he? I think that's it. Yeah, that's the only like main evidence. A lot of it's depends how you read it, but there are some really concrete evidence in there, and I find it really interesting. Like, he's pale, he disappears for long periods of times, he doesn't turn up to Quidditch matches, and of course this can be like the whole Death Eater killing Dumbledore thing, but then it could also be the whole werewolf thing. Let me know what you think. And then my favourite theory, because I'm like, yes, as soon as I read it I was like, I believe this, is the whole idea that the Dursleys are affected by Harry because he is a Horcrux. Now, this kind of doesn't work in terms of like Ron and Hermione have never been completely affected by it, and you would argue that if the Dursleys were, etc., then he was, because if you think, Ron and Harry, when they wear the locket in the Deathly Hallows, they are short of temper, they start treating each other badly, etc. Now, imagine having that for 10 years. That's how long Harry was there. Over 10 years in their house, all the time, just radiating this Horcrux energy. But then, people argue that the Horcrux only acts like that when it's going to be destroyed. Like, the Horcrux knew that they were trying to destroy it, that's why it was trying to tear them apart so it couldn't be destroyed. And it's a self-preservation thing. Harry didn't know that, so the Horcrux inside him wasn't acting like that. But then, it kind of explains the Dursleys' behaviour, it kind of explains sometimes Harry's irrational behaviour and his whole self-preservation thing. And yeah, I just find that theory really interesting, and it would explain a lot because the Dursleys are very, very cruel to Harry, and people say it's just because of the magical effect on them and it's not necessarily their personality, which I find really interesting. But then you would argue that when he went away to Hogwarts and came back, they may have improved slightly. But then I guess gradually over the years they did a little. Interesting. Now, if you liked any of these theories, please do tell me or let me know any more. I am going to film part 2 because I absolutely love all the theories, and there are some really good ones that I haven't been able to fit into this video, so I will do that in the next one for you. See you soon. Bye.